Today we're going to talk about how to take the derivative of one function divided by another function. This is going to be called the quotient rule, the quotient of two functions. So in order to figure out how to do this, we need to first write this out as a limit. The limit is h approaches 0 of the difference quotient for u of x over v of x. So u of x plus h over v of x plus h minus u of x over v of x all over h. And so the first thing we're going to do, because this is a complex fraction, we're going to just simplify the complex fraction. So we're going to turn this into a limit as h approaches 0 of u of x plus h times v of x minus u of x times v of x plus h all over v of x plus h times v of x times h. So what we've done is we've multiplied by v of x over v of x and by v of x plus h over v of x plus h to get a common denominator. And then we've combined the two numerators together. And then because dividing by h is the same as multiplying by 1 over h, we could throw that h into the denominator down here. So now that we've got a simplified version of our limit here, we're going to do something similar to what we did with the product rule, which was we're just going to add in a couple of terms into the numerator of this. And it's a little different than what we did last time. So we've got u of x plus h and v of x, and we've got minus u of x and v of x plus h. This time we're just going to add in u of x, v of x, and we're going to subtract u of x, v of x. And this will all still be over v of x plus h v of x times h. And again, we've added u of x, v of x, and subtracted u of x, v of x, which is effectively like doing absolutely nothing. So now we need to figure out how we can come up with a way to like sort of factor something out of here so that we can turn this into a simpler form where we can find some derivatives. So what we're going to do is we are going to take this first term and this last term, and we're going to factor out the common v of x. This will become a limit as h approaches 0 of v of x times u of x plus h minus u of x. And then I'm going to say that this is all over h. I'm going to ignore the v of x plus h times v of x that's in the denominator for just a second. And then we're going to subtract from that a limit as h approaches 0 of, and then what can we factor out of these other ones? We can factor a u of x out of those other ones. So we'll have a u of x, and then that's going to be multiplied. If we've taken a negative out of it, that would give us a positive v of x plus h minus a v of x all over h. And I'm still, again, neglecting that v of x plus h v of x in the denominator. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make a third limit for that, because as long as the top limit doesn't equal 0 and the bottom limit doesn't equal 0, I can separate them into two separate limits. So we'll have the limit as h approaches 0 of v of x plus h times v of x right here. And the bottom limit is super easy to evaluate, right? The bottom limit just becomes v of x times v of x, or v of x squared. But the top two need to be separated into their own separate limits again. So let's go ahead and do that on the next page. So this first part, the limit as h approaches 0 of v of x is just going to stay as is. And then we're going to multiply that by a limit as h approaches 0 of u of x plus h minus u of x all over h. And then we will subtract from that the other limits that we had, which were the limit as h approaches 0 of just the u of x, and the limit as h approaches 0 of v of x plus h minus v of x all over h. And now that's all over that bottom one, which we decided was just v of x times v of x, or v of x squared, and it's no longer part of any of the limits. And then from there, we know that as h goes to 0, v of x is just v of x. And the limit as h approaches 0 of the difference quotient for u of x is du dx. And then we'll subtract from that the limit as h approaches 0 of u of x, which is just u of x. And the limit as h approaches 0 of the difference quotient for v of x, which is just dv dx all over v of x squared. And that is our quotient rule. V du minus u dv over v squared. So anytime we're looking for the derivative of a quotient of two functions, u over v, we'll take the denominator, multiply it by the derivative of the numerator, subtract the numerator times the derivative of the denominator, and then divide that all by the denominator squared. Let's practice a couple of these. Here we've got f of x equals x squared minus 1 over x squared plus 1. So we'll call this u over v, because it's a quotient of two functions. And f prime of x ought to be the denominator, v, times the derivative of u, 2x, minus u times the derivative of v. And all divided by x squared plus 1. And of course, if we want to, we can simplify this down into 2x cubed plus 2x minus the quantity 2x cubed minus 2x over x squared plus 1 squared, or just 4x over x squared plus 1 squared. So using the quotient rule because it's a quotient of two functions. We'll do the same thing here. We have a quotient of two functions, u over v. So our derivative, f prime of x, ought to be v times the derivative of u, which is 6x minus 1, minus u times the derivative of v. And we'll just find both those derivatives with the power rule. And then we'll divide that all by v squared. And once again, if we want to, we can, of course, just go through and simplify this down. I guess we might as well. We've got 24x cubed. We've got a minus 4x squared, a plus 30x, and a minus 5. And then we will subtract the quantity of 24x cubed minus 8x squared plus 16x. And of course, it's still all over 4x squared plus 5 squared. And that ought to simplify down. In the end, the denominator will stay the same. The 24x cubed minus the 24x cubed will cancel. Negative 4x squared minus negative 8x squared. That's like negative 4 plus 8x squared, so that'll be 4x squared. And then 30x minus 16x ought to be 14x, and then we have minus 5. One nice little rule that we can come up with is called the reciprocal rule using the quotient rule. So if we have a constant divided by a function, this is like having a function, u, divided by another function, v. So we can still use the quotient rule. We can do v times the derivative of u. The derivative of a constant is just 0. So we have g of x times 0. So v du minus u, that constant, times the derivative of v, which is just g prime of x. And then we'll divide it all by g of x squared. And this reciprocal rule just ends up being negative c times the derivative of g all over g of x squared. And of course, you can always apply the quotient rule if you don't want to memorize the reciprocal rule, but it's just negative g prime over g squared and then times that constant that was up in the beginning. So it's a convenient rule just to know as you move through our derivatives. So we could use that rule here with f of x equals 3 over 2x cubed plus 5x. The reciprocal rule says f prime of x ought to be negative c times the derivative of that function in the denominator, and the derivative of that would be 6x squared plus 5 using the power rule. And then we'll just divide that by 2x cubed plus 5x to the second power. That's it. And of course, if you use the quotient rule, you'll get the same answer. You'll just have to write a couple extra little steps. Oftentimes on the AP test, they'll give you a little chart of values and then ask you to find f prime of some x value, given that f of x is either a product or a quotient of two different functions. And as we learn some more rules, we might see some other rule types thrown into these. So we'll use the product rule first for this one. Right? We know that f prime of x is equal to u of x times v prime of x plus v of x times u prime of x. That's what we learned last time with the product rule. So if we want f prime of 2, it's just u of 2 times v prime of 2 plus v of 2 times u prime of 2. And so we'll just go in and evaluate all of those. Our chart says that u of 2 is equal to 3. So we've got 3, and it says v prime of 2 is equal to 0. So 3 times 0. And we've got v of 2 is equal to 5. So this will be plus a 5 here. And then u prime of 2 is negative 2. So we have negative 2 there. We've got 0 minus 10 is negative. And we can use the quotient rule over here on this side. G prime, in fact, we're going to skip a little step here. G prime of 4 ought to be, using the quotient rule, b evaluated at 4 times the derivative of u, so u prime evaluated b du, minus u evaluated at 4 times the derivative of v prime evaluated at 4, all over v of 4 squared. And v of 4, if you look at your chart, v of 4 is 2. So we've got 2. And u prime of 4 is negative 3. We've got u of 4, which is negative 1. And we've got v prime of 4, which is 4. And then down here in the denominator, we've got v of 4 squared, and v of 4 was 2. So we've got 2 squared down, which gives us negative 6 plus 4 over 4, or negative 6 plus 4 is negative 2. Negative 2 over 4 is negative 1/2. And the last little thing we're going to talk about today that doesn't really apply to the quotient rule, but it's going to be important for you, are the 4 possibilities why a derivative might not exist at a point. And so the first of those is a corner, something like the absolute value of x graph, because as we're coming in from the left, the slope or the derivative is negative 1. And as we come out from the right, it's positive 1, right? So that doesn't exist because from the left-hand side, the derivative is different from the right-hand side. A cusp, which comes from lots of different things, but sometimes like x to the 2/3 power, also means our derivative doesn't exist. And as we come in, we're coming in with a slope of getting closer to negative infinity. But as we come back out, the slopes are close to positive infinity. Okay? And so we can't have a derivative at a point where the slopes from both sides are approaching different numbers. And the same is true here. And as we come in from this side, we're coming up to a vertical tangent line here in the middle. And a vertical line always has a slope of 0. A slope that's undefined, and therefore the derivative, the slope of the tangent line, doesn't exist. So at a vertical tangent line, like on x to the 1/3, we can't have one either. And lastly, a discontinuity. The function doesn't exist, then the function cannot have a derivative there either. And that should be good for us for today. And we will stop right there. Next time, we're going to talk about find the derivatives of trig functions. And then we'll move on from there to lots of other functions.